skilled player, just kind of a young guy who's just beginning to make a name for himself.
Yeah, and this is his first, I'd say his biggest tournament to date, and off to a great start. Then again, looking at his opponent, we said this during the drawing, Braun-Duin just doesn't take a tournament off. I mean, you say that 4 players are going to get eliminated at the beginning of the day, and you automatically know that Brian's not going to be one of them. He's going to make a deep run in the tournament. The question is always, how deep is it going to be?
Yeah, rarely will you see Brian get off to, an 0-2 start in an Open Series event or anything. He's never really dispatched very early, and not surprising to see him off to a 2-0 start. Mize is going to search up, a forest with a wooded foothills, and we're underway here in round number 3 between these two players. One of them is going to walk out of this bracket, walk out of this group at 3-0, and advance right on to day 2. We'll see if it'll be Brian or if it'll be Logan. Brian with his Abzan aggro deck, Logan with green-red aggro. 2 decks, I imagine, coming in this tournament that neither player expected to see walking in here, but looks like good metagame calls for both players, as BBD will play a Windswept Teeth and attack here for 3 with the Lion.
Yeah, and you said just that, how important this kind of match is. I mean, the winner gets to go all the way on to day 2, so there's a ton at stake here for both players.
Let's see what Brian is able to put together for his 3rd turn of the game. He will search up a plane, so all 3 colors of mana are at the ready.
Yeah, right now, Brian off to a good start. One of the things that Abzan actually has as an advantage in this matchup is that its creatures are just very big on the toughness to mana cost ratio, which means if you're playing red removal against them, it's not well situated to, a 3-3 for 2, a 4-4 for 3. Red has a hard time with these sorts of things, and I think we're going to see that right now. Brian has his most efficient curve, and Logan may not be able to keep pace with it.
This is the start that I think that's pretty scary. A 3-3 into Anafenza, just 2 large creatures. Anafenza going to make the Fleece main line larger, and if Brian has maybe a removal spell within this combination of cards, this game could be over before it even starts.
Well, Logan has to have the Lightning Strike for Fleece main line, you would think, because if he doesn't, Anafenza is going to put a counter on Fleece main line, and then suddenly it will get out of range of Logan's best removal spell as well. So the weapons he has Lightning Strike to take care of Fleece main line. In his deck, he can use Air of the Wilds with Death Touch to trade with some of Brian's larger creatures, but that's about it.
Yeah, it's just a passing of the turn right now here for Mize after playing a mountain. BBD is going to play a Caves. He's going to tackle both of his creatures. Trigger. Anafenza is going to go after the line. It's going to resolve, and this is a little bit of a scary situation, but here's a Boon Satyr. We'll see if Brian has removal spell. He's immediately tapping mana. That's going to be a Bile Blight to get that out of the way. And as we said, this game might be over before it even starts.
Well, and I think you're exactly right. Red has trouble removing these really large creatures. So what Logan has to do is he has to try to trade with them. But that has the danger that when Brian has a kill spell, it just doesn't work. We saw it there. Logan tried to ambush away the Anafenza maybe with a Boon Satyr, but Brian just having none of it. Bioblights away the Boon Satyr. And before you know it, Logan's down to 7.
Air of the Wilds is here to play a little bit of defense, or at least try to.
Yeah, Logan hoping for the trade to work.
Yes.
If Brian has the kill spell, I mean, we're already on to game 2, just 5 minutes into the round.
Well, I think he just drew the kill spell. There's a Bile Blight. You see him shrug his shoulders, take 1, and that is going to do it very, very quickly. Braun-Duin does win game number 1 here over Logan Mize, not wasting any time. Abzan aggro, aptly named.
Yeah, that was,
beatdowns.
I mean, the most efficient of creatures backed up by some kill spells. That can run a lot of players over, and it's exactly what you saw there.
Well, Logan Mize is going to have to go to the drawing board. He's going to have to take a look at his sideboard right now, which you do have in front of you. So what do we think here as far as the options are concerned?
Well, he has some options, but things still get difficult. If he wants to try to kill these larger creatures, he has copies of Fated Conflagration. It's not great because it costs 4, and he's using a 4-mana spell to kill generally, well, 2- and 3-drop creatures, but it does give him some extra leeway as far as getting rid of these cards like Siege Rhino, like Anafenza. So I imagine we'd see Lowen go down that path and use some of them. Outside of that, he has his own set of Pelucranos, so maybe if he boards in Pelucranos, he can just have a bigger creature and try to answer it that way. If Logan's going to try to trump Brian's deck with creatures, then he's going to want to increase that density, play all his creature trumps, and hope that one of them sticks and that Brian can't just kill everything.
Well, fair enough. We will now take a look at our Star City Games creature collection. It is the Ooze token. You do see the deck box, the dice bag, the playmats, the sleeves, all that good stuff that I'm sure you're all familiar with at home when we do have these disgustingly cute creature collection tokens do come out. Now, of course, with Ooze tokens, get 2 free with each website order over $5 until, basically the end of the year, because at the beginning of the year, a little spoiler alert, we're going to have some new action for you guys. Can't tell you what it is, but chances are we might be telling you over the course of the broadcast. Maybe it's a little new creature collection, maybe a little game night action for you guys as well. But for right now, Ooze tokens available now, StarCityGames.com, or any Open a Series event that you do join us during 2015. We hope to see you guys the first week we are in Columbus to kick things off for Season 1 of 2015. As we take a look at Brian's sideboard now, you'll find 3 copies of Glare of Heresy, 4 Drown in Sorrows, a Murderous Cut, 3 copies of Back to Nature, 2 Sorin Solemn Visitor, and then 2 copies of Nissa World Waker. This is not going to come as much of a surprise, but you're not going to find a lot of great sideboard options against green-red aggro from Brian, or I imagine anyone this weekend.
Well, this wasn't a deck that Brian was expecting. You're absolutely right. So his sideboard's not great against it. But the good news for Brian is, as we saw there, his main deck's already doing pretty well on its own. I do think he'll board in more removal spells. Cards like Murderous Cut are great against an opponent who's trying to play Pelucranos, play Stormbreath Dragon. You'd love to have that kill spell. So I think he'll use that. Outside of that, he may use a copy of Sorin Solemn Visitor as well. It's pretty good here in the sense that it just creates more threats that Logan has trouble dealing with. But outside of that, yeah, Brian's main deck's pretty good.
Stephen Mann is making the most out of this tournament so far. He is currently up a game against Brad Nelson. For Mann, again, barely slid into qualification last weekend. Needed Dylan Donegan to either fail miserably at the tournament, which we all know he did not, to seize your Season 4 Invitational Champion, or win the tournament, which he clearly did. Now, Stephen Mann, again, barely making it in. And now he is 2-0 and up a game, and if he wins another one with his White-Blue Heroic deck, he's already into day 2.
Yeah, that is our other group that has fallen with two undefeated players, the Brad Nelson Stephen Mann matchup. So just like day 2 is riding on this match, it is riding on their match as well.
And those 2 players in Group B, we've got 2 players here, 2-0 in Group A in Braun-Duin and Logan Mize. So we'll see what they're able to put together here. As Mize is going to have to be a little bit more competitive than he was in the last game. Just got ran down from a really, really good start from Brian.
When you think about Stephen Mann, I mean, that group drawing was doing him no favors as well. If he comes out of this at 3-0, think about how impressive that is for him. His opponents in the group, Tom Ross, Brad Nelson, Chris Van Meter.
That's a surprise. He would be the surprise 3-0 there, I think, almost for sure. And to his credit, of course, you look at his accomplishments over the course of the year, most Open Series top 8s among any of the players in the tournament.
Yeah, so very consistent. A lot of top 8s. And, he has a Pro Tour top 8 to his name as well. He's no stranger to doing well at large tournaments.
Temple of Abandon to start things off. Temple of Malady on the other side of the table. It's a land, and it's a copy of Elvish Mystic. Mize's deck does want to accelerate a little bit. You can see he does have 2 copies of Fated Conflagration in hand. There's a Fleece main line there from BBD. He'll take 1 to cast it before passing the turn back over to Mize, who will draw another copy of Elvish Mystic.
Yeah, it's those efficient beats coming out of Brian again. This time, Logan does have 2 copies, as you mentioned, of his sideboard card in hand. So we'll see just how good they are here. I expect them to do pretty well. This time, if Brian has the Curve of Lion into Anafenza, Logan is more than ready to deal with it.
Oh, he is just fine. Fated Conflagration going to take down the Lion right now. Logan, of course, gets a Scries. He did cast it on his turn. It's another Lion, along with a Temple of Silence here for Brian. Brian going to take a look at the top card, and we'll see where it's going to head here in just a moment. Conflagration is just a card that's really well positioned, but there is a real cost to playing that. 3 red in the casting cost.
Yeah, triple red. It is a 4 mana kill spell, which is a lot for 1/1 removal. It can't go to the player either, so it does have the added bonus that it can take care of a planeswalker. So in a lot of ways, it's like the red hero's downfall, if you're willing to put it that way. It does cost 1 more, but probably kills whatever planeswalker or creature you're targeting.
Now you saw Logan take care of Fleece mainline last time. He's not going to do it again this time. He's just going to pass the turn back. You can see his hand. He does have a copy of Boonsader over there. There's an Elvish Mystic that he's opting not to cast this turn. Also has a copy of Stormbreath Dragon. Actually looks like there's 2 of the flyer. I feel like I'm watching Kent Ketter play Magic right now, but that's not the case.
Well, if possible, Logan would like to trade with this Fleece main lion instead of spending his kill spell on it.
Here's a Boonsader. You saw Bioblight go after the Elvish Mystic. Brian says, I will not be attacking, thank you very much, and might as well draw a card. Does he find a land? He does. It's a forest.
And a really good Bioblight from Brian there. So he already got to see that Logan was short a land. So using a removal spell on a mana creature already is a pretty reasonable play here. But by doing that pre-combat, he forced Logan to Boonsader outside of combat. So there was no surprise trade there. Logan played the Boonsader, and Brian got to realize that it was not safe to attack.
These two creatures will trade. Here's an Elvish Mystic and passing of the turn. Big deal, too, there, because it would have been very easy for Logan the last turn just to play another Elvish Mystic and say, okay, I'll just play this, and next turn I'll play Stormbreath Dragon. But that was not the case, as if he would have done that, Bioblight would have been an absolute disaster. Now here is a Siege Rhino for BBD. He's up to 21, Mize down to 17, and a passing of the turn. But Mize does have 5 mana available now, and we could go to the skies here.
Yeah, this is a deciding choice here for Logan. He can either race with these Stormbreath Dragons, or he can try to kill the Siege Rhino. He's going to try to race, which seems decent, but racing Siege Rhino is always a difficult thing to do.
Absolutely. It does hit hard as it's hitting in right now. Mize is going to go down to 13. Brian's going to play a Wingmate Rock, and that might put the brakes on here for Mize just a little bit.
Yeah, these life gain cards that are also efficient beaters are so good out of the Abzan aggro deck. I think you're right. Logan has to stop and reevaluate whether or not he wants to try to race.
And protection from white is a big deal here. So, he might be incentivized to say, well, my creature's pretty good given the situation. Protection from white is great against your board, and I'll hold back. We might even see a situation where he plays another Stormbreath Dragon and holds them both back on defense. So how he wants to navigate things here are very interesting. He picked up a copy of Fanatic of Xenagos for the turn. That one's probably not going to play a big role in things right now, but it looks like he's going to play another dragon and just pass the turn back. So it's time to turtle up.
Well, if Logan can just wait and survive up until 7 mana, he can leave both these Stormbreath Dragons back as blockers. Then finally on turn 7, use Monstrosity on one of them, deal some damage to Brian, and if Brian has enough cards in hand, the next attack from the Stormbreath Dragons could put Brian to a very low, if not lethal total.
Now the big question, I'm sure you're wondering, is how does Brian get Stormbreath Dragon off the table? Can his deck properly handle this card? He has some difficulty. 4 Bioblights, well, they'll have to tag up, and he's already used one of those. He does have a Murderous Cut in his main deck. He also has a Murderous Cut in his board, and then he has 3 copies of Hero's Downfall. So this could be a hole in his game, but unsurprisingly, Stormbreath Dragon right now is a hole in a lot of people's game.
Yeah, I mean, Brian's leaning on Abzan Charm to do a lot of work, and that's just not going to work in this situation.
Urborg going to come down. That's land number 6 here for BBD. But you can see he's certainly slowed down because he's got to figure out a way to not get through 1, but 2 Stormbreath Dragons right now.
Remember, Brian's the aggro deck, so cards like Wingmate Rock and Siege Rhino are really good while curving out. But if they get into a staring match, then Logan's probably favored. He is the one with Stormbreath Dragons right now.
Brian really taking his time on this turn, trying to figure out what he can do, and all he can do is just pass the turn back. So Logan's going to untap that Mystic and those 4 lands, and he'll take a draw step. Didn't get a great look at what he found. But, Logan does have the ability in this situation, let's say he picks up a Boonsader, for example, maybe bestow that onto a Stormbreath Dragon, and let's start turning the race back in his favor. Though, to be fair, it's hard for me to believe, at least if I'm in Logan's spot. Oh, Brian, you don't have anything? Just passing, huh?
Absolutely. Right now, though, the levers are in Logan's hands. He has the ability to decide when they race and how they race. And you're going to see him use that to his advantage here. Cards like Ashcloud Phoenix, Fanatic of Xenagos. He can just continue to deploy to the board.
3 mana. Yeah, you had to imagine Brian had something. What is this something? It's a copy of Hero's Downfall. That'll clear out a Stormbreath Dragon. 2 cards left in BBD's hand.
Does he have another kill spell?
Here's 2 mana. There's a Bile-Blight. That'll take care of Ashcloud Phoenix, which means it's going to go face down. So we're going to head back BBD's way. 2 removal spells. And now he's coming into the red zone. Trigger the Wingmate Rock. He'll gain some life.
He chose to make his move here. It was either kill the creatures or hope to draw another Bile-Blight and then just score the coup of getting all the Stormbreaths. But I like the play he's made here. He's gotten rid of most of Logan's blockers. Logan does get to eat one of his creatures, but Brian will connect with the other ones.
Now, there is a real concern here just about the reach that Brian's aggro deck can do. Something like Abzan Charm giving something +2/+2, for example. Not a bad situation. Now, how does Logan want to block? Well, we're going to find out in a moment, though you have to imagine he wishes he had that Faded Conflagration mana open right now instead of maybe that Ashcloud Phoenix.
Yeah, the choking on mana here for Logan has really kept him at 1 spell a turn, and that's going to get him a bit here. And I like the point you made with Abzan Charm. While Abzan Charm can't kill Wingmate Rock, or can't kill Stormbreath Dragon, rather, it can save Wingmate Rock, which is nearly as good on this board.
Yeah, that might just be good enough.
Yeah, if Brian makes all his creatures 4/5s, well, okay, Stormbreath has protection from white, but it's not killing anything.
Logan very careful on how he wants to block here. Okay, so Wingmate Rock is going to lose a Stormbreath Dragon. 7 damage is going to come across. Here's 5 minutes, another Wingmate Rock. Yes, sir. Another Flyer is going to come into play.
And this was the plan for Brian. He's just going to suicide creatures into Logan, hoping to get those last points of damage across.
And there are a lot of reasons that Siege Rhino is an incredible Magic card. But the big one here is the trample right now
Yeah.
because there's no jump blocking allowed.
Exactly. The tramp. If the 6-point life swing wasn't enough, if the 4-5 for 4 wasn't enough, it also has trample.
So now Logan is in a real world of trouble. And you have to imagine that, I mean, in this situation, maybe his best draw Stormbreath Dragon, potentially.
I mean, it's so hard. He is a Stormbreath Dragon deck that's getting aggroed out by white creatures.
Yeah. You can see his hand. Faded Conflagration is the big one, but as good as that card is, it's expensive.
It's just so much efficiency on Brian's side. So his 2-mana spells are 3/3s. His 3-mana spells are 4/4s. His 4-mana spells, they're 4/5s, but they hit for 3 when they come down. So they're like hit like 5/5s at least. And the 5-mana spells, well, there's not only do they have 6 power, but it's all flying.
And it's spread across 2 cards.
Yeah, everything has more power than its mana cost, which is just an absurd amount of efficiency.
Let's see what the draw is. A copy of Boon Satyr. Not sure how much that one helps in this situation.
Not much, if at all. Logan needs another flying blocker to not just die in the air to this attack. The only one I believe he has in his hand is another copy of Ash Cloud Phoenix, so that locks him into either playing Ash Cloud Phoenix or that second Faded Conflagration. And even then, it's not clear whether or not he can survive this attack.
And the tough part here, too, is that you don't want to tip your hand with Faded Conflagration, but, you know, he could really use a Scry 2 here as well. I think that's the other really, really difficult situation here for Mize.
Well, yeah, and I think tipping your hand is probably fine. He'd really hate to have maybe an Abzan Charm blow him out or something like that. He's so locked into playing the kill spell that he may just take the extra value off it. Brian is probably not going to hold back next turn anyway.
Might be in a situation here where Logan needs Brian to have nothing for a turn or two, because I could see a world where he just plays Ash Cloud Phoenix, passes the turn. You put Stormbreath in front of one flyer, you put Ash Cloud Phoenix in front of the other. You maybe throw away your morphed Ash Cloud Phoenix to Siege Rhino, and you go down to 1. The Ash Cloud Phoenix that blocks the flyer, of course, turns into a morph, and then maybe you're able to stabilize at that point. But then you're trying to duck a lot of stuff, but that just might be the situation that he's in.
And it looks like that's the line he's playing for. I think you're right. He plays Ash Cloud Phoenix. He's going to hope to trade that with a bird token, hope to kill a bird token, chump away 2 of the damage from Siege Rhino, so take 2 trample, take 3 from a bird, go to 1. From there, he could Conflagration a flyer, and block a flyer, and if he can find a way to get her on the Siege Rhino, maybe he's okay.
And there are some bad draws in Brian's deck right now. You know, a card like Rakshasa Death Dealer isn't a big deal. Fleece main line isn't that big of a deal. But again, that's part of what makes this deck scary, is because while those cards aren't huge deals, they do matter on the following turn when they're attacking.
Well, there's so many cards that are big deals, too. I mean, a Siege Rhino wins the game for Brian.
Yep.
A removal spell wins the game. Even Abzan Charm, that's not a removal spell here, just as a pump spell. That probably wins, too.
Chances are. Mize is going to figure out how he wants to block now. It looks like that morph is going to have to go in front of the Siege Rhino. Don't know if he wants to throw Elvish Mystic in front of that, too. Maybe to soak up a little bit more damage. Could potentially want to do that. 3 damage is coming across no matter what, so you can put Mize at a virtual 3 right now. The question is, how much lower is he going to go?
Yeah, he's either going to go to 2 or 1 here, depending on if he chumps with the Elvish Mystic. And I'm not sure those are actually different numbers as far as the cards in Brian's deck are concerned. You know, a Siege Rhino kills him both ways. Logan may just want to hang on to his mana.
Abzan Charm, I think, gets the job done no matter what.
Yeah, it's 2 more damage.
It's 2 more damage, right? So it's always going to get the job done. And as you mentioned, he might just want to hang on to his mana from the Mystic. That might be more important at this point in the game.
It doesn't give him any additional outs to gain that extra life point.
It looks like we're going to pass through combat. Brian's, of course, going to gain some life there from Wingmate Rock, which is also a big deal because if Logan starts to turn the tide in this game, well, that's an extra draw step potentially from the life that he's gained.
Yeah, every life point that Brian has is another chance to top deck a Siege Rhino.
Well, Logan has made it out alive this turn.
Plan A of Brian having absolutely nothing seems to have worked for Logan.
It's like easily the worst feeling in the world of just, well, I hope you have nothing and I hope you draw nothing for 2 or 3 turns, but
and then I have a chance. I haven't won yet if that happens. But
I
then
have a
we can
chance.
Play.
Yeah, and you know what? It's the worst feeling in the world to have, but it's a plan. It's better than having no plan. So step 1 has been accomplished at least, which is Logan's at 1 and he's not dead. He's going to Faded Conflagration on the upkeep right now. Says, I want to get this thing out of the way. 2 cards are going to go to the bottom from the Scry, as he did cast Faded Conflagration on his turn, picked up a Mountain for the draw. Now, of course, Logan can't really do much attacking here, as the Stormbreath Dragon's going to have to hang back on defense against the Flyer. Though the Morph and the Mystic can come into the red zone, it looks like they're going to, and they do.
They need to. Logan does not have any life gain in his deck, and Brian does play cards like Siege Rhino.
Well, there it is.
There you go.
You mentioned it, and it shows off the top of the deck. Braun-Duin with a smile on his face is going to take care of Logan Mize. 2-0. Abzan aggro looks to be a pretty good choice as Siege Rhinoceros deals the last points of damage, and BBD is through to day number 2.
Yeah, your first player, undefeated, winning arguably the hardest group in the tournament, or one of the hardest groups. He's the winner of Group A at very least.
Yes.
And he makes it through to day 2 at a 3-0 record. Remember, 7 other players will join him over the course of the day. We'll find out who they are.
Yeah, we're going to have to work our way through it to find out exactly who's that going to be. But for Group A, we have our 3-0. It is Braun-Duin. He is our first player into Sunday battling. So congratulations to BBD, our Season 1 point leader. An impressive performance with a deck, that I did not expect to see here this weekend in Abzan aggro.
No, he's one of the only Siege Rhino players. And, you know, if we've forgotten about that card, that game will remind us just how good it can be.
It is.